Hello, thanks for joining us again on these Talking Issues series that we put together, really talking about public policy issues here in Southern California. And of course, coming from a business background before I was elected to the legislature and after I left the legislature, having my own business, I do have always a continued interest in supporting and understanding local businesses, primarily, independent ones that are doing this stuff on their own. So I have a buddy here I want to introduce you to. His name's Brian Rauso. Brian is in the beer business. Microbrewing has become a really popular area of interest. I'm not really a beer drinker, but Brian continues to tempt me. But thanks for being here today, Brian, and joining us.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, good. So I think we got to know each other when you were working with a local brewery known as Noble Ale Works. They were established in Anaheim in about 2010-ish.
Yes.
And we tried to figure out how to roll the red carpet out to that business. I think that was one of the, not the first. There were others.
Close.
But close to
Very
one
close.
of the first. I think there was the Anaheim Brewery down in by the Packing District area.
Yep.
But you were there. So kind of what got you started in that business?
It's funny because it was, I think, like most of us that get into the beer business, you find something that sort of hooks you.
Beer probably hooked you.
It was, I mean, because I'm a business person,
Yes.
right? So running 4 or 5 other businesses over the last 25 years, I've been sort of a serial entrepreneur. And then a friend of mine said, hey, there's a bunch of us going to start a brewery. Do you want to buy in? So I'm like, well, sure. I had a computer consulting company at that time, which is it's not very fun, right?
Right.
It's kind of boring and techy.
You can't drink that.
No.
So,
And I'm like, sure, I'll buy in. So I bought in for a couple percent and, it was about 2010. And then after a couple of years, it was, okay, this is a pretty cool community. And then that's, I think what hooked me is it's more, your competitors help everyone. It is a small business mentality of like, we're all small businesses. We're trying to make the craft beer better. And it was after a while, like I became the CFO of Noble. And then by around 2015 or 16, I was the CEO. So I think it was the hook of just creating a product that was arts like, but also the business side of it. And I think that's what got me more than anything else. Most breweries don't have a really strong business on the small side, because the Noble was small at that point, and still, we're all still really small. But that's what got me.
yeah, no, that's so. So it's interesting to me. I mean, you emphasize the artistic element of that craft, and you have to have a good product or someone who knows how to make beer.
Yes.
And then if you don't have that, you fail. But if you also don't have business sense and business knowledge, you're going to fail.
I always call it the yin and yang of the business.
Right.
Right.
And
the
you
craft.
were which one?
I was the yin, the business side, and I think that's funny. You could be both if you're a great brewer.
Yeah.
But then it takes away from that, right? You should focus and specialize in what you're doing. And that's what me and Evan do, right? You have to find that person. And it's funny that every time that someone starts a new brewery, there's, 45 or 50 breweries in Orange County right now.
Wow.
You can only get to 2 or 3, right? So you better be one of the top 5 or 8 because people aren't
So
coming.
if you're going to make it a brewery day, travel around to a couple of them. Right. You obviously are someone who understands or has a certain interest in beer, so you better have some good product.
Yes, and I think that's, every time someone starts a brewery, I'm like, so great, you're the business person, I get it. Who's your artist here?
Yeah.
Go find somebody that's the best, because a lot of these guys, they're making great beers, but they're salary, or they're making okay money, but you have to. I always say golden handcuff them to the business, and that's when you get the best product. Best mentality, what's best for the company, instead of I'm going to work here a couple years and I'll perfect my trade and I'm going to go take it somewhere else.
Yeah. So of those, what you said, 45 to 50, how many of those microbreweries are in Anaheim?
one, two, four. There's Villain coming up, so that's another one. You have Radiant. So there's that's they sort of come and go.
Right.
Dueling Ducks. I think you have Brewery X.
Right.
So you have some bigger ones, some
Right.
smaller ones, but like I said, Villain coming up is a good one. That's Brad. He's actually one of our brewers. He was actually a brewer with us at Noble. So he was almost family, and then he's starting Villain on his own as the head brewer.
Oh, is that right?
So yeah, it's kind of cool.
Yeah, so when Noble came, I mean, again, I'm not into beer. I don't understand the whole process, and maybe after your time with beer, you can tell us some of that process. But I know in the Anaheim Planning Department, when the first contact we had made with Noble, we want to you came in, or the leadership of your group came in and said, let's, we want to do this. And it was, how do we make this work? How do we make it work easy in the city? And I know we have one planning person who originally said, I'm interested in this, and I'll help them go through the planning process, Scott Kim. And he continues to be the go-to person in the city of Anaheim, but probably far beyond that in terms of assisting brewers in their establishment. The first time in that first building, it was as everything was moving forward quickly. I remember you have the big tanks, yet the sewer system or the did not have a big enough
main trunk
for what was required. Is if that whole tank exploded or emptied all at once, you have to be able to move that out of that room. So I remember the very last minute you had to do a whole change to put in a bigger sewer system on an industrial building.
And that was Steve and Jerry. They were the ones that were spearheading that, and that was truly the shoestring, like bootstrap, come up out of nowhere. So that was, I think those days are gone, kind of a thing in a lot of respect, because a lot of that stuff you can't really do yourself in that scale.
Yes.
And I remember all those challenges of getting open and, just get it open, because the more you're sitting around okay, you're not making any money, right? And that was, I think, learned a lot in that process, because that process is, that's where the business person is. Your capitalization, how much money do you have behind you? You just got to get this thing open, because the more you drag it out, the more money you're not making. So, but it is, the city has to be on your side. And Scott is truly, to this day, you can ask him questions in pretty much any city, because we're in 3 cities now. We're in Orange, Costa Mesa, and Huntington Beach, Sunset.
Yeah.
But Scott still is that, he's, I would say, God when it comes to that asking questions.
I will make sure I send this to him, because I don't think any place he's been referred to as God. So I'm sure he'll be happy. But I mean, after I left being mayor, soon after that, I mean, my successor, Tom Tate, he appreciated and supported microbrewery, and he worked hard to push Anaheim forward in that regard as well. But I guess I look at that as a business that we can kind of focus on individually from other type of businesses. So yes, it's unique, but also it's the same. When you come and, what is that physical plant? What do I have to do to make my building work for this? But also, how do I get customers? So how do you get customers? How do you establish yourself? I mean, back then, for example, when there really were not that many microbreweries in Orange County, let alone Anaheim.
It's, I think, first is a location, right? Because that was a good spot.
Yeah.
It was between the Angels and the Honda Center and Angel Stadium.
Right.
Pretty cool space. So I think first is finding your location, key, and then it's about your engagement with the community, right? Because that's, I think, a big one, especially now. 12 years ago, 13 years ago, social media wasn't like it is now, right? You have to hit that pretty hard. It hits, but it's still your local community. Right. These places are, I always equate it to like the pre-prohibition. Every little town had 2 or 3 breweries, which were really bars. They made the beer downstairs and they would pipe it upstairs. I grew up in Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh, and every one of those little towns had 4 or 5 breweries. And this, I think, equates it to, Anaheim has a lot right now. So it's, once again, you start getting saturation point. Okay, I can only pick, you have 6 here, 5 here. Which ones are the best, and what's going to be my local brewery? So I think it's the engagement of, where you're located, the engagement with the community, and then keeping them. right? It's your local bar. It's that, hey, Dave, how's it going? What are you doing? Right? Haven't seen you. Where's the kids? So I think it's that I worked at TGI Fridays for 6 years. It was, right, it was your customers. It was those guests that you came in.
Right.
And my concept with Green Cheek is I want you to feel like you're coming to my front porch, hanging out, having a cocktail, having a good conversation, and something to eat.
Yeah.
And I think that's, you do those kind of fundamental things, you're going to be solid.
Yes. So you and the brewer from Noble left Noble to form your own company.
Yes.
Green Cheek.
Yeah.
Green Cheek Brewery?
Green Cheek Beer Company.
Green Cheek Beer Company. I want to make sure I get it
Yeah.
proper. And so when did you establish that? 2000?
End of 16, beginning of 17. That's when we, the Valiant Brewing was the one we took over in
So
Orange.
Valiant and Orange
Yes.
went under, and you were able to go in there and...
Yeah, it was one of those things. Kelly and Brian were really nice people. I was on the Orange County Brewers Guild. We were, I was one of the executive board, and talked to them. They were, they were engineers. They were doing it for a couple of years, 4 or 5 years, and it just wasn't working out.
Right.
So it's finding that, sort of win-win, and it was finding that space.
Okay.
And it was a small spot, and all those things you want to do. Low overhead low, the entry barrier of entry it's already been established, CUP set up. Those are the easier ones to go to.
So that is off of Batavia.
Between Taft and Lincoln and Taft.
Okay.
So right,
It's always hard for me to find, by the way,
Yeah.
since I don't
Oh.
go there very regularly.
Yeah.
So, but obviously a lot of people found it. And
Yes.
that became successful. So you named it Green Cheek.
Yeah.
So make sure everybody knows why you would name it Green Cheek.
Green Cheek parrots, the wild parrots that fly around Southern California. They're very social. They're kind of loud.
Yeah.
You never see really one. You see two or many more.
Right.
But they're called green cheek parakeets. And with us, we were like, how do you make it a local, iconic kind of brand
Right.
that people could understand? If they see them flying in Long Beach or down in San Juan, it's like, what is that? Green cheek parakeets. So yeah.
I guess I should say soon thereafter, we were, you and I were with our wives on a weekend cruise to Mexico, and we happened to, without naming her name, we were with a very prominent Orange County TV celebrity
Yes.
with us as well. And we were all sitting around a table by the pool when someone comes over and with a big point of recognition. So are they pointing to the politician that they recognize me, or to this celebrity TV star? Did they recognize her? No. They said, Green Cheek Beer, awesome, man. And so it kind of put everybody in their place.
It's ironic that, and it's wild as how that is taken off, and
Yeah.
people, and I always call it Instagram famous. It's because we have a large following, which is great,
Right.
But also, it's my kid goes there, he loves it, he got this, I saw the shirt, he got it for Christmas, and that's what that was. It was like, can I take a picture with you? She's not going to believe that I was laughing. I'm thinking same thing, but
Yes.
I think it is that loyalty when you.
But that was early on.
It was early
in
on.
the establishment of Green Cheek, because a beer brewery license is different than any other type
Yes.
of alcohol license, right?
23. It's
Okay.
production, so we're beer manufacturing.
Right.
We have premises privileges of selling our beer in tasting rooms.
Yeah, see, that is what's clever there. So you have one license that
Mm-hmm.
covers the manufacturing, but it also allows the tasting room.
Yes.
So where you manufacture, you're manufacturing in Orange.
Yes.
And then that you could have a tasting room.
Yes.
But then you expanded to Costa Mesa.
Yes. And that's the whole thing is the 23 gives you that, the privilege also of food. So,
Right.
And that's I think the caveat that with us and self-distribution, right? We don't have to go through a distributor. And that's one of the other key things. A lot of the breweries starting up, they'll give me X if I sign with them. But then they own you forever.
Right.
So we decided no distribution, right? It's our own. We'll do what we want with it. So expanding out into the restaurant side, which the 23 allows us, you're allowed to have 6 duplicate 23s. And I think that just changed.
So you file for one license with
Mm-hmm.
the state, you get that, and then you can have 6 separate locations where you can be a tasting room,
Yes.
or brew at those locations,
Yes.
and sell food,
Yes.
all under one.
And that's the food permission, and that goes through the health department, which you become a restaurant. So you're really a restaurant in a lot of respects, right? And that's funny thing is, I always say to Evan, and we're a brewery that happens to have food.
So,
right?
so you've referenced your
Evan, yeah.
partner quite a bit. So, why don't you just tell
Oh,
everybody?
yeah. Evan Price, he was the brewer. Actually, he started at Hangar 24, worked at BJ's, over to Taps Brewing, and then Noble. He was the head brewer over at Noble, and that's where I met him. Right, and that's
No,
so
no,
he's.
I know he'd be really upset if you didn't properly introduce him. You know, he'd chase me down.
He's truly that is the yin and yang. I mean, we just came back from Nashville. We won a couple medals on the international stage. It was 4 medals, 2 gold, 1 silver, and a bronze, and that's all Evan's. His vision of what it is, and that's where you get noticed. And you were asking before, like, how does this happen? How does you sustain this?
Right.
That gets you. We're going to be at Firestone Walker, right? We brew with them. We were just down in Australia at Balter. We brewed with them. We're going to England, brew with them. I'm going up to Sligo. So there's a lot of this England. Japan also. So it's when you get
International competitions or international programs that highlight small brewers around the world, huh?
Yeah. And it's funny. It's craft brewing, so you have to have criteria not owned by a larger, like bigger corporation.
Right.
But that's when you're up. In this case, we were up against 5,000 other beers or breweries. So, one of the medals we took there was 425 entries into the one hazy IPA category. We won the best in the world on that one. So it's the Olympics of brewing where you're going against England, Japan, everywhere around the world. So,
wow.
And that's where, you take both sides of it. There's a business, but there's also you focus on, we make beer, right? And that's, I think, gets people from around the world coming in and, hey, I saw you did this. And, so we're local little guys that truly, we have 3 locations, but we're nowhere near the big guys that have that,
Of course.
Yeah.
That big name. I mean, you can't really transport your beer outside of California, can you?
You can, but there you go again. It's the quality of it. You're a distributor. Now you have to drop it 30%. So
I see.
Now you're in that. We're sticking more to the smaller side, the true craft side of it. So like we know wineries, same thing. They're very good boutique wineries are amazing because they can worry about that smaller side of it. It might be more premium cost wise, but when you make good stuff, right? That's why we say we're a brewery that happens to serve food or happens to have a good location or happens right. So yeah.
So the Costa Mesa location is where you added after you were established and growing in Orange, and that's off of Baker. I know that. Close to my son. You have a place where he put his laptop and sit there and somehow be at work while he's having a beer. And
he's at office.
Yes,
he's
exactly.
at the office.
You're an office location.
Yeah.
so that's a big facility, though, right?
That's very big. That's a brewery and a taste room with a restaurant. Yeah. That's in a patio, and that's 16,000 square feet. Wow. So that's a big. Larger place, taking over the complex in some forms. But yeah, it was a bigger bite to take on.
So how I have no idea. How much beer do you make a week?
Yeah.
I mean, do you count it in barrels
yes.
or bottles or in burps or whatever? I don't know.
We brew not a lot. We brew probably 3,000 barrels a year at both facilities.
I see.
Not a lot of beer. Most of it's going through those tasting rooms because the wholesale side it's so hard to get out there, right? You're fighting against the big boys that are a lot bigger, more salespeople, all the infrastructure that costs a lot of money.
And you pretty much can sell all your product.
Yep.
People walking in and buying directly from you.
And online. The wild part in pandemic, that was the key that saved our company. That everybody had to turn on a dime, and that's exactly what we had to do. We went from nothing open, and that was 2 months after I bought the Costa Mesa location, so I was kind of panicking, but we were able to can it and sell it online, and that's what saved the company in the drive-through.
So you can can. And
yes.
So you produce, and again, put it in perspective. How many cans of beer do you make a week? I mean, I have no idea.
I would say probably 9,000 a month.
I see.
In pandemic, it was 40. I mean, it was 40,000. It was a lot.
So because that's the only way you sold your product.
That's it.
That time.
And that was the whole thing.
And I know you had created a kind of a drive-through through the industrial park where people lined up, didn't have to get out of their car.
Yep.
You provided cans at the window and they drove on.
It was a humbling experience at that time because no one knew what was going on, and
Right.
we didn't know if our business would last.
Right.
I just got that second location, and we were putting it out there. Hey guys, the pandemic's on. We're all closed down. I'm trying to keep people employed, right? Kitchen people became drive-through, staff,
Right.
so we could keep people on, and we put it out there. Hey,
wow.
guys, we need your help, right? We need, we're going to be selling these cans. There was nothing else to do in the pandemic. They were closed. So I think drinking was one of those side things, but we opened it up.
I don't know if the side thing. It might have been the main thing.
It was
for
probably
a
the
lot
main
of
thing
people.
because there was not much going on. So it was a funny, on our side, okay, the customer, the guest that knew us, are they going to be biased? And I was humbled. We opened the door. It was, I think, 5:00 in Orange, and the line, there had to be 60 cars waiting for us to open. And I truly almost broke down.
All on social media.
All social media.
The only way you could communicate. There's no other place.
No other place.
So the folks who had been following you and supporting you,
Yes.
they saw that you're releasing this beer at this point in time, and
they literally showed up, and they showed up
Wow.
every day for 2 years and kept us going. And it was truly that you sometimes I'm a tough business person. I got this, and that's when you really look and I broke down. I was like,
Yeah.
this is amazing that
Right.
that we have not just friends or guests or customers. These people are family. They said, okay, yes, and some would stock up more than they needed, and they would send it off to people. So I was truly that's when you look at the industry and say, this is the craft industry. And that's why it keeps you in it. It keeps you in it when it's very tough at business-wise. Your people that you see every day is kind of cool.
so you have Orange. You moved to Costa Mesa. And now, under the same license, you
Yes.
opened a third location this last year, right?
Yes, in Sunset Beach. It's used to be Harry's Diner, right next to Mother's down in Sunset Beach. It's basically a restaurant with a rooftop bar. It's the rooftop part that got me because the place was there for 23 years and it was pretty run down. And it was like I went there, it was sundown, and I walked upstairs to the patio and I just looked because it was really bad. And I just looked and I'm like, I'll take it. It was a leap into another restaurant, which are very tough.
Right.
But it was about the location, the community,
Right.
and it's wild.
So you don't brew there, do
No,
you? So that's just a tasting room
Yes.
/ restaurant.
Exactly right. It's
I
the
see.
restaurant, and it was, and we do things pretty standard pub foods, smash burgers, fries, tots, pretzels, salad, a couple other things, but it's
Oh, good. I'm glad you threw salad into your pub food.
oh man, I love that. That's the one I get all the time. So it's our Mediterranean salad, but it's things like that where keep it simple, stupid, right? Make it very good, just like our beers, and you just they'll be there and stay around. And that's, I think that's the key to a lot of these breweries that are opening up. It's everybody figured out you need a patio and you need some food to keep them there, not just food trucks.
Right.
So, so that one opening up was a challenge. It was truly a lot longer, and it cost a lot more than I wanted it to be.
Is that in the city of Huntington Beach, or is it county?
It's incorporated. Huntington Beach is where we do all the
Okay.
permitting
so it is
and
a
all that.
part of the city of Huntington Beach.
Yes, but it's Sunset Beach. Very distinction.
No, I get it. I understand the difference.
Oh, they will.
I
Come
know
at
where
me.
Anaheim Hills is, and
Exactly
that is a
right.
part of Anaheim.
Yes, yes.
Might be called a little different. But
Yeah.
but that does lead to we start talking about how do you establish a business when you have infrastructure needs and going through planning and design and, all of the challenges you have to open a physical plant, then the challenges of running a business. I mean, as you become successful or not, as city rules change, you're dealing with city government in each of those locations.
Yes.
You have a state license, I get it. You have health department overseeing your brewing and your food, but what is the interaction with city government? How are some of those challenges, without naming any city
No.
or feel, those are all the battles of business. I
Yes, and it's funny is a lot of the breweries that I know, they're one city, right?
Yeah,
So
right.
you either know them or you don't.
Right.
I'm dealing with 3 cities, and it's wild is that how different they are,
Yeah.
and how everybody says they're business friendly. That's like the Everybody's
so
busy.
define it, right?
So it's bad.
Yeah, right.
So it's funny.
No. I mean,
Oh,
it is the standard response
Yes.
of someone running for office.
Yes.
I get it. You see it. We're a business friendly community.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Great. What does that mean?
Yeah, and on my side, it's, do you have a liaison? Is there someone I can talk to? Right. The Chamber of Commerce is actually one of the best, and that's why I became part of the one we have in Orange. Those, you can find out who you can ask.
Right.
What should I do? How should I do this? Is there something I'm doing wrong? Now, bigger, Huntington Beach is a lot bigger. Costa Mesa, so it's funny that we're a part of these in the chambers, and you go to those groups and you're like, okay, you're sort of like Opie. You're like, I'm not even sure where I go to.
Right.
And that's a lot of when you get there. Okay, here's my ABC license, my federal TDB license, occupancy. So that's why on my side, I went to established businesses already. They already had their CUP.
Right.
I'm basically just
Conditional
piggybacking.
use permit. Every
Yes.
alcohol-based business has to get a conditional use permit. The local guidelines on how to run in their city. Yeah.
Yes, and that's, to me, that's the key in a lot of these cases, because I look at places that might not be doing well, or they're bankruptcy court, or whatever that might be. That's the key. After that, then you find out, okay, listen, I need to change signs, or I need to do this, or I need. Then
Or two of your locations are in industrial parks or industrial locations, which, I don't know what it is. If it's 2 parking spaces per 1,000 square feet or something.
1.9. Yes.
Oh, pardon me.
Yes. Right.
I rounded
Good.
up. Forgive me. But
Good.
the point of the matter is, now you're a retail establishment. You go into industrial location because you are doing industrious stuff. You're
Yes.
manufacturing beer. But that's kind of the weird aspect as city code. You're a restaurant, you're a manufacturer, and you're in a manufacturing business. And then you run up against the issue of traffic. If you're successful, you hope there is
Yes.
traffic
Yes.
and parking needs.
Yes. And it's funny, in all 3 locations,
Yes.
it is that way. Everyone, and we're blessed
Yeah.
because we are busy, and people are. It's when you're that busy, and it's a community problem too. In some of these locations, it's the beach.
Right.
It's going to be busy at certain times. In certain locations, you can't jam more people.
No, and you're in a crazy spot in Costa Mesa,
Yes.
where Shaheen Sadeghi
Yes.
built the camp and the lab and has broadened that, and because of that magnet there,
Yes.
and success there,
Yes.
and traffic there, other businesses have come around that, including yours right now.
Yes, and that's the whole thing. Those property values have gone up. The people that own warehouses, tilt-up cement warehouses, are benefiting from it, and that's the dual use. That before it was, it's just a tilt-up warehouse. You can get it for 80 cents a square foot. That's not the case anymore.
Right.
And with that, that success, everybody looks around and that's when you look to the city.
Right.
Like, how do I, this 1.8 parking stalls I need per 1,000, that's great, but it's not going to happen in a lot of respects.
Well, you can't find it.
You
Once
can't
something
find it.
was built 30 years ago.
Yes.
To say, how do I find another
Yes.
parking space? Other than Costa Mesa. I mean, really what Costa Mesa did, is that Randolph Street?
Yes,
that is?
Randolph.
I mean, for putting a center median,
Yes.
center parking, really broaden the public parking space. I mean, that doesn't solve everything
No.
for you, but it shows how business can, work with government, and government assist in that, those challenges the business has, so you have economic prosperity.
That was a win.
Yeah.
That was true, because it was when we first. It was a racing strip. There was going 2 ways, right? So it was 4 lanes basically.
I see.
They would go down there 60, 70 miles an hour. When they put that parking in, speed bumps, it made a walking pedestrian, and that helps the business out, helps the city out. It's a walking little location, and now they're trying to make those spaces. They're beautifying it, right? They want the patios out in front. Which is great. But once again, a parking garage or something else in that location would help that whole scenario. So I think, us being there, this is our 4th year, and we're about to sign another lease, but in that space, we're looking, okay, we need help, right?
Yeah.
When we're successful, the city's successful, we have more employment, we have more tax base. So it's those things when you reach out to the city and say, hey, what can we do?
It is interesting. One of the negative attacks on business and government has been this term crony capitalism. And I think it's based around when government somehow works to assist business, but
Yeah.
government can work to harm business very easily.
Yes.
And it's not
Yeah.
called crony decapitalism.
No.
So maybe there's an opportunity when the rules that are established by elected officials that say this is how this should run, to say, okay, this is a different use than was this building was originally
Intended.
built for. There's a transitioning use. What's wrong with government saying we see that now? How do we work and partner with one business or 10 businesses or all businesses along a street like they are there in Costa Mesa to address your needs?
And it's funny. I think that is such a tightrope of
Sure.
business needs, community needs,
Right.
Because nobody wants it to be a crazy, party town kind of thing. But also, with that, there is economic prosperity.
Yep.
There's, so they have to walk a line. Because on my side, I have to make a decision. Is it worth me staying here,
Yeah.
or can I find another city that is more conducive to my business and the needs that I have to make it? Because as we know, everything's going up.
Yeah.
How do you stay profitable? And people think, oh, you're a business person, you're rich.
Yeah.
I am in debt up to my eyeballs, right? Just because I had to get loans. I don't have any money.
Right.
I had to borrow it. You have to be, and with the 85 employees, I need to make that money so my employees can get paid and they can have a nice life. And so it's funny. That's why I think this is it's sort of a symbiotic all the way around between the community, the city, and the businesses. And everybody is always looking out for their own. But if it's just a win on one side, everybody lost, because now you're going to have people fighting you on the community side or the city side. So it's a funny fight. I don't like to delve into the the political side of that because
Yes, everybody now should realize business doesn't necessarily need to be in all of the political battles of the world.
Yeah.
But again, not as a beer drinker, but as just someone who watches this evolution of your business and product, it always fascinates me to see the new stuff that somehow is at a brewery. You talk about the hazy
IPA.
IPA. Okay,
Oh,
I can understand what that is.
New England IPA, right?
I can understand that, and some of the traditional beers. What are some of the traditional products that you?
Oh God, reds. You have pale ales.
Okay, I actually know that. Okay,
Right,
so I think I know
IPAs.
two of your things.
Yeah, IPA is Indian Pale
Sure.
Ale. That was Britain. Had to get it to India, and they had to put a lot of hops in it to make sure it didn't spoil by the time it got to India. So things like that are the traditional. Kolsch, Pilsner. These German ones that are thousands of years old. All of those traditional ones. But then you come up with one of the ones, seltzers are considered a malt product, and that's newer. And everybody probably knows
So
Truly.
they have an alcohol content of
Yes, it's funny. That is ours are usually 5%. Some people
Right.
make them 13%.
Right.
Where it's
but most beers are
beers can basically range. It's singles. So you're at 3%, like your British milds and all that, up to
3 to 5 or
3 to
7.
13.
Oh,
You can
13.
do barley wines. You can get crazy.
Right.
When you start getting past 13, everything starts. It's not a good
So
idea.
you guys have moved into seltzers, so you have a lot of different seltzers. You showed me what's that?
Lavender lemonade. Yeah.
Lavender lemon.
Lavender lemonade.
Yes.
That's at in Anaheim Stadium, right? They have 2 locations.
right?
So it's one of those things that's sort of getting picked up, and we can't make it fast enough. And it's one of those weird kind of we're a brewery that happens to sell a lot of lavender lemonade seltzer.
Well, because you want to make sure if someone comes in,
Yes.
they're not just the big beer focused customer. With food, you want to make sure you have all of that, right? That customer is happy, and Evan is even moving into wine.
Yes.
Really?
Yeah, Albarino, because we have a license, a O2 license, a wine grower's license in Costa Mesa also. So we have it sectioned off, and
Really?
it's funny. As much as a lot of times I joke with him, we aren't afraid of dumping batches.
Yes.
And but the one that's just come out, he is a perfectionist, and he keeps going at it until it's like his new thing. And that we're only on there's 37 cases of this Albarino, but it's really good. And I don't want to hope Evan don't. I didn't say that, but it's funny. I think in this industry especially, you need to innovate. If there's something new down the line, try it. See if
Isn't that advice though for every business?
Yes.
You know,
Stagnant.
Really, there's no standard still.
No.
Still.
You will lose people, and when you say that, and we know a lot of brewers that are really like that, and we love them. They're family to us, but they always no. I'm a traditionalist.
Yes.
This is the only thing I do.
Well, Brian, it's nice to get an inside
Thank you, yeah.
insight into an industry which is prominent here in Orange County and prominent because of people like you working very hard at it. So thanks for coming in and chatting about your business and microbrewing in Orange County.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right, man.
Thanks.